Hi, my name is Alex Weicker. I'm the principal immigration attorney and owner of Amigos Immigration Law and Services. I've attended hundreds of USCIS interviews throughout the country, and today I'd like to talk to you a bit about what to expect at your naturalization interview. I'll give you some tips and tricks to help the interview go more smoothly, and I'll go over the documents that you should bring to your interview. First of all, you want to aim to arrive at your interview 30 minutes early. The time and location of your interview should be located on the interview notice that was mailed to you or is available through your USCIS account. Although many USCIS centers won't allow you into the building until at the earliest 15 minutes prior to your interview, it's good to get there early just in case there's a line in front of the building, or maybe if there's traffic or weather conditions. It's better to be early rather than late. To get in the door, you're going to need to bring a valid photo ID and your interview notice. It's like airport security, so keep that in mind with the dress. You should dress nice, but you may have to take off your shoes or belt or other items just to get in the door. You should avoid bringing food and drink. If you have dietary restrictions or small children, sometimes they will make exceptions. The same thing is for cell phones. Some USCIS centers allow you to bring cell phones, some don't, so it's really up to you. You may be waiting for a little while for your interview, so if you get bored easily and you can't bring in your cell phone, you may want to bring something to do, like a magazine or book or something like that. No weapons, so leave your explosives, your handguns, your ninja stars, and so on. Leave them in the car. Don't need to bring them in. Finally, you're going to want to wear a mask. Most USCIS centers won't allow you in with a vented mask or a neck gaiter, so you're going to want to have a cloth mask or an N95 mask, something along those lines. After you get through security, there's going to be a check-in desk nearby, and you're going to take your interview notice and check in. They may take biometrics, so they may take your fingerprint and photograph here, or they may do that later on at the start of your interview. It depends on the center. They're going to give you a number, and you take that number and you sit down in the waiting room. Now, you may be waiting for a while. If numbers that are higher than your number are called before yours, don't worry. They don't go in numerical order. A lot of times, they have different officers that are doing different interviews and they go at different speeds. So that's why you may not be called in the correct order. But whenever they do call you, the officer will walk you back through a maze of corridors to the office where the interview will begin. You can sit down in the office. If you have an attorney, they're going to sit either next to you or behind you. If your attorney is attending over the telephone, this is the time where you want to remind the officer to give your attorney a call. Now, some officers will say, well, you've got a clean case. This is going to be quick. We don't need your attorney here. Having an attorney is your right. And if you do have one and you've already made arrangements, you should politely insist that they give your attorney a call, which they should do. After they do that, they're going to ask for your photo ID, which you should hand over to them. You should also just give them your green card too, because they're going to need that just to make sure. Whenever you hand that over, they verify your ID, you'll raise your right hand, swear to tell the truth, and the interview will begin. There's two basic parts to every naturalization interview. There's the test portion with your English exam and your civics exam, and there's the review of your application portion. Officers will do these portions in different orders. So sometimes the exam is first, and sometimes the review of the application is first. It really is up to their discretion. Most times, though, the exam portion will take place first. The exam includes the English component and the civics component. The English component has a listening/speaking component, and that's actually tested throughout your interview. So throughout the interview, the interviewer is going to be checking to make sure that you have the ability to understand what they are saying and what is in the application, as well as the ability to communicate with them. Also, there is a listening component, and that is going to be tested by the officer giving you a written sentence, and you have to read it out loud. Okay, usually the sentence that they give you is something civics related, like, where does the president live? So that sentence will either be on a screen or on a piece of paper. If you read it out loud, you pass that part. Now, you're supposed to get 3 chances, which means they're supposed to give you 3 sentences, and they're also supposed to give you some leeway here. Some people are elderly, or have listening problems or speech problems. So they're supposed to be very patient with you. The purpose of the officer is not to make this difficult. It is to give you every opportunity to pass the exam and become a United States citizen. But some officers are not so nice. This is why it's often good to have an attorney with you at your interview, because it keeps the officers honest. If they're being too forceful or too aggressive with you, the attorney can remind them either just by being there or verbally that they are not following their own protocols. Anyway, to continue. So first you will read a sentence, and then they're going to have you write a sentence. And usually this is going to also be on a touch screen with a touch pen. The sentence is usually civics related. And again, you're going to get 3 chances. If you have minor errors, like you misspell a word a little bit, or there's a little bit of grammar wrong, they're still supposed to pass you. You don't have to be absolutely perfect. You're just showing that you have a comprehension of the English language. So again, if they're being too strict, then they're going against their own protocols. Assuming you pass the English portion, they will then move on to the civics portion. Now, for the civics exam, there are 100 possible questions. You can find them all online. And they're not going to ask you any questions that are outside of that scope. They will ask you 10 questions, and all you have to do is get 6 correct. Okay, if you get the first 6 correct, you're done. They're not going to ask you 4 more questions. There's no multiple choice here. They're going to ask you a question, and you are going to have to know the answer. Just study. As long as you study for this, you should be okay. Now, if you are under some of the age restrictions, if you're older and you've been a permanent resident extra long, you can get some type of English and civics accommodations. So make sure you're aware of that whenever you apply for your naturalization. Also, if you have medical conditions, such as debilitations that don't allow you to actually learn English or civics, you should submit an N648 ahead of time. That's a different topic, and you might want to talk to an immigration attorney about that. If you don't pass your exam, you will get a second shot at it. It's going to be kind of an inconvenience because it's going to be 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months before they call you back for the second interview, but you'll get a second shot. If you fail twice, you don't get a third shot. You are going to have to reapply, which means repaying the fees and going back to the beginning of the line. After the exam component, then they're going to go on to the application component of the interview. This is the part where they review your naturalization application. So it's a good idea for you to review your application ahead of time. You should always make a copy of your documents whenever you file anything. So if you filed by mail, I hope you have a copy. If you file it online, then there should be a copy available to you in your account. The only questions that they're going to ask you are the questions that are on your application. Now, this is a part where if there were any typos or if any information has changed, that you can amend that information. There's no penalty for doing that. So if you've moved, if you've changed jobs, or maybe originally you didn't want to change your name and now you do want to change your name, you can make that change on the application at the interview. If you've traveled internationally since you filed this, since processing times right now are pretty long, then you can tell them that you traveled. The most important part of the interview is the yes or no questions at the end of the application. Okay, these are the security questions and the oath-related questions. It's very, very important that you understand all of the yes or no questions. So if your English is not very good, it would be to your benefit to review these questions and understand every word, because there are some complicated language in these questions, just in case the officer asks for an explanation of your understanding of the question. If they feel like you don't understand what you are answering on your application, they may call you back for another interview. Again, this is what I was saying about the listening and speaking part of your English exam going throughout the interview. Also, for the oath of allegiance, these are the final questions at the end of the application. They want to make sure that you understand the oath. And the oath is actually, they give you the text of it at the end of the application. So you should read that and know what it means. If you're a conscientious objector to joining the military, you need to tell them that you don't want to join the military and give an explanation as to why. Otherwise, The application review process would be the time that you're going to give supporting documents if the officer asks. And these are usually related to the yes or no questions at the end or your travel history and so on. For instance, if you have issues with your taxes, they're going to ask for your tax documents. Now, the look back period for your documents is going to be either 3 or 5 years, depending on your basis for filing. Most people file under the 5 years, but it may be 4 years if you are an asylee adjuster who is now naturalizing, or 3 years if you have been residing with the United States citizen spouse. The documents that you want to bring to the interview are going to be different for everybody. There are some basic documents that everybody needs to bring, and a good rule is to have all of your documents organized before you come. Whatever method works for you, that's what you should do. I mean, I usually recommend people bring at least 3 different folders, one for biographic documents, one for original documents that were already submitted, and one for new documents. But you can use your own method. The reason why you want it organized is because if you have a messy pile of documents, first of all, make you look real good, but also it's going to make you nervous during the interview if they ask for something and you have to rifle through a big ugly pile of papers to find what they need. So as far as biographic documents go, you definitely want to bring your ID, your interview notice. I recommend bringing your original birth certificate with a translation if you need it. It's not a required document, but I've had interviews where they want proof of your name for the naturalization certificate, and the passport is secondary evidence to your birth certificate. So it's good to have it on hand just in case. Additionally, obviously your green card, and you want to bring your passport or passports. I recommend bringing all passports that you have had since you became a permanent resident of the United States. These passports are going to show proof of your travel history, which officers like to look at. Additionally, whether or not you're filing under the 3-year rule, you want to bring proof of your current marital status. So if you're married, bring your marriage certificate. If you have been divorced, or if your spouse has passed away, or if your marriage was annulled, you want to bring the documents that show this: the divorce certificate, annulment decree, death certificate. I also recommend bringing any proof that prior marriages have ended. You know, they're not supposed to ask for it unless this is a marriage-based naturalization, but it's always better to be over-prepared versus under-prepared. And it's the same thing for your children's birth certificates. You don't need to bring them, but I think it's good to have them on hand. If you have children, bring the birth certificates. And for all of these documents, you want to bring originals, okay? And for every original that you bring to the interview that you did not submit with the original application package, you want to make 1 copy to bring with you. This is because the officer may not have access to a printer or just may not be willing to print a copy for you. And you definitely don't want to hand over these original documents to USCIS because who knows when you're going to get them back. In addition to the biographical documents, and again, that should be pretty much everything that you need in the biographic folder, you're going to bring any criminal documents, original criminal records, if you have a criminal record. Now, a lot of clients that I have, they go, I don't have a criminal record. But then whenever you push, you find out that they have traffic citations or tickets or something, you know, way back in their past that has been a record that's been sealed or been closed or something pardoned. Those are still criminal records. And I mean, they need to be disclosed on your application, and you need to give the original record or certified record to the officer. Now, if what you have is just traffic records, disclose them. It is not going to be a problem. In fact, it's helpful to you. It shows that you are more forthcoming with the officer to disclose these incidents than it is for you to realize later on that you had this issue and did not disclose it on your application. If you have a serious criminal history, you should talk to an immigration attorney just to make sure you don't have any issues. That should have been done before you applied. That's really important because sometimes you shouldn't apply. It's good to stay a green card holder rather than kick the bear, so to speak. If you are a male who would qualify for selective service and you did not provide that proof with the application, you would also want to bring your selective service registration proof, and you can print that off online. Additionally, I recommend to everybody that you bring your tax filings for the regulatory period, which is either 3 or 5 years usually. I recommend tax transcripts, okay? You can get these from irs.gov, and you can usually get them for 3 to 5 years back. You can bring printouts of your tax records that you did with TurboTax or your accountant gave you, but tax transcripts are the real proof of actual filing. And I have seen issues where the tax documents that were given by an accountant didn't actually match the IRS records. Also, if you bring your own tax records, you want to make sure that you bring proof of income like W-2s or 1099s or the schedules as well. Not all officers ask for these, but it's good to have them on hand just in case. Because again, they could give you what's called a notice of continuance for any documents that you did not bring, and that will delay your case, and you'll have to prepare them and send them in and wait longer. If you are applying based on the 3-year rule with cohabitation with the United States citizen spouse, then you're also going to want to bring proof that your spouse has been a United States citizen for the duration of those 3 years. So a birth certificate, passport, naturalization certificate, certificate of citizenship, and so on. Also, you would like to bring proof that the two of you have been cohabitating. So you've been living together. Sometimes it's kind of hard to prove. Just do the best that you can. Best proof would be lease agreements, over the required period of time, mortgage statements, utility bills with both of your names on it. If you don't have that, then you want to go with secondary evidence like letters from landlords saying that you've lived there, mail with a date and your name and the marital address. You may have to be creative with that. Do the best that you can. Another document that you should bring in cases where you are paying child support, I always recommend that you bring proof that you are up to date on your child support for the regulatory period. Have that ready just in case they ask for it. And that really goes towards good moral character. If you have good moral character issues, that could be a problem such as a criminal record or tax issues, it may be a good idea to bring additional evidence of your good moral character to the interview. I'm not saying that everybody needs to do this, but such evidence could be helpful to your case, and it's better for them to have it on the record. And you want to have a copy of everything that you hand over to them at the interview, just in case there's a denial or an issue. Evidence of good moral character can include a lot of different things. I usually like to tell clients to bring proof of, if you have a criminal record, that you've done rehabilitation or you've done mental health counseling, community service, charitable donations. Those are all really good. You can get affidavits from people attesting to your service or your good moral character. Those are excellent. Photographs, if you run a business and you're employing people, you may want to bring those records. Anything that is showing that you have been in the United States for a long time, you have connections to the United States, like family, community connections, or that just basically is going to show you for a good person. That's essentially all of the documents that you should bring. After they've gone through everything, you may have a question, well, what next? This is the point where I will usually ask the officer, well, what do you think? Are there any issues that you see? Are you planning on approving the application? And sometimes they'll let you know, oh, this looks good. Yeah, this is probably going to be approval. Sometimes you get an officer who can actually approve the application. So they can actually give you a decision during the interview that says, yeah, this is going to be approved. And if you've got an online account, then you can check online, and that's going to be the first indicator that your application has been approved. You'll either say your application has been approved or that they are scheduling an oath ceremony or something along those lines. Sometimes you can do a same-day oath ceremony. And if that's the case, then the officer may just tell you, yep, approved, and you're gonna do your oath ceremony today. And they'll give you a notification of the time that you're gonna do it. And once you do your oath ceremony, you are a United States citizen. But if you don't do the same day, if they approve your N-400, you are not a United States citizen until you finish your. It's really important that whenever at the end of your interview, they will go over a list of information, basically your name, nationality, so on. Look that over very, very closely, because that is the text that is going to go on your naturalization certificate. If there's anything misspelled or incorrect, and if it goes on your naturalization certificate incorrectly, it could be a huge hassle and a huge cost for you to replace that naturalization certificate. So make sure it's right the first time. That's pretty much everything. If you have any questions, you can always give me a call or shoot me an email. The information is on the screen. Been a pleasure and good luck at your naturalization interview.